we decided to spend 3 weeks exploring Idaho to see what we could learn about the state. Our first lesson was that Idaho covers 83,569 square miles. So if we really wanted to learn everything about it, we'd have to cover almost 4,000 square miles a day. To give you some perspective, here's a 4,000 square mile chunk of Idaho, and here's how 21 of those would stack up. Well, we did not cover 4,000 square miles per day. We moved a little slower than that. So we didn't manage to see everything the state has to offer, but here are some highlights from what we did learn. We got our first glimpse of Idaho as we came along the east side of Bear Lake heading up from Utah. Bear Lake is surrounded by mountains and is referred to as the Caribbean of the Rockies because of the beautiful turquoise color. We were thrilled to discover that our first overnight stay in Idaho was in such a beautiful place. We almost wanted to cancel the rest of the trip and just stay there. We seemed to spend a lot of time near lakes, so we thought a large percentage of the land in Idaho was covered by water. After a little research, we discovered that only 1.1% of the surface area of Idaho is covered by water. In our defense, that 1.1% of Idaho contains some very impressive features. For example, Lake Ponderosa covers 150 square miles and is the 5th deepest lake in the United States. At one time, the Navy used Lake Ponderosa for submarine testing. The Snake River winds through many scenic areas. There's some impressive waterfalls along Idaho's waterways. Shoshone Falls are sometimes called the Niagara of the West. They're 215 feet high, which is 45 feet taller than the actual Niagara Falls. Our favorite waterfalls in Idaho were the Upper and Lower Mesa Falls. They are the last prominent waterfalls on the Snake River that are not impacted by man-made structures. And for one last water-related item, we stopped to watch some ducks and a moose pulling dinner from under the water. Idaho is home to a very large agriculture industry and produces more than 185 different commodities. In the United States, Idaho is the #1 producer of the following items. Potatoes. I know, no surprise there, but I think you'll see some surprises with the rest of these. Peppermint oil, barley, hay and alfalfa, trout, and Idaho is also the #2 producer of hops. I thought the huge trellis setups were really interesting, so I did some research on how hops are grown, and I fell down a rabbit hole. The rabbit hole got so deep that I may have to make an entirely separate video about weird agriculture facts. So, back to the Idaho agriculture. The yellow blooms in the canola fields are beautiful. In fact, some of the Idaho farmland is so beautiful that there's a region with rolling hills covered by farmland in Idaho and Washington that is called the Palouse. It lures in photographers from all over the world. We were in Idaho in June, and it looked like the tourist season hadn't really ramped up yet. This is what the beaches looked like at Priest Lake State Park and at Bear Lake State Park. There were far more birds than people. The water was still really cold. Now, Idaho does have some quirks. I've never seen a store advertise alcohol and firearms before. Another quirky thing we saw was a line of old vehicles on the side of a mountain. It went on for miles. If it was a museum instead of private property, I would still be trying to drag Paul away. Here's a section of Idaho that can get overlooked because it's only 17 miles from Yellowstone National Park, but don't miss it. Within a 40-mile span, you have Henry's Lake State Park, Harriman State Park, and the Upper and Lower Mesa Falls. All of those are absolutely stunning. City of Rocks National Reserve had some great scenery, and in the 1850s and 1860s, people traveling the California Trail sometimes left their names written in axle grease on some of the granite rocks there. Redfish Lake had probably the most striking scenery in the entire state, but we weren't there long and we didn't get any footage that really does it justice. Here's one last Idaho fact. The Grand Canyon is not the deepest river gorge in North America. That designation belongs to Hell's Canyon. Hell's Canyon is located along the Snake River between Idaho and Oregon. Now, these photos are not of Hell's Canyon because we weren't able to squeeze that into our trip. In these photos, we're a little bit north of the canyon and we are sadly watching the jet boat tours head to Hell's Canyon. so you're going to have to go check that one out for yourself. I'll close with some beautiful scenes that we saw along our tour of Idaho. Thanks for coming along with us.
Sunshine, blue skies, stay with me until I die. Be mine, oh mine. Selfishly, I want you in my life. Come on now, light me up. Sunshine, stay with me. If I have to move the moon, I will. Stop rotating. Oh, why can't the earth just stay still? Don't leave me now. Sunshine, blue skies, stay with me until I die.
Paul's got the tools, yeah, he's the jack of trades. Wendy's grabbing snapshots in the golden rays.